Good morning, everyone. Do I have my, oh, I don't have my mic on. Hold on. Okay, now you should be able to hear me. Can everybody hear me? Good morning. Coffee. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, so for the past week, we've been working on the granny square bags. And this right here behind me is the bag that I'm currently working on now. Up to this point, we've made the granny squares. I've showed you how to make the skulls pop out of the granny squares so that there's no like really jagged edges around them. Like some of them you see have like the jagged edges around them. I showed you how to make your granny square so that the edges kind of pop out and you see like a crisp line around your granny squares. Yesterday we I worked on showing you how I stitched together the each of the granny squares. So there's 13 of them total to make this bag. And today I'm going to show you how I make the handles. And I'm also going, and then tomorrow I will show you how I do the decorative stitching. There's my other granny square bag in the back. And tomorrow I'll show you how I do the decorative stitching on the handles. And then maybe next week I'll show you how to line them. Somebody had asked me how to line them. All of these videos that I do live on TikTok, I will then, when I'm done with TikTok, I will upload them to my YouTube channel. Excuse me. They are under a playlist titled Nifty Knots, Niftynknotz, all one word, Talk, T-O-K, for TikTok. So, Nifty Knots Talk. I do believe there is a link in my link tree right to my channel site, and all these videos, if you want to go back into them and like flip through to the places that you wanted to see a particular spot, how I did something in particular, you can do that. So they are saved. You can go back to them and refer to them. You just have to go back into YouTube and subscribe. You don't have to subscribe, but that would be nice. It would be fantastic. I just appreciate you guys being here. So, anyway, the granny squares, and to make the bag, we have to make the handles on our bag now. And before I start making the handles on the bag, I didn't weave it in all my ends because I'm going to crochet over top of them. So before I start making this, let's talk a couple seconds about chevrons. So if you've seen the like chevron blankets, the zigzag blankets that are made, when you go around this bag, you're kind of going to have to do the same thing here, where you decrease your stitches. Because if you don't decrease your stitches at the points where they are down and angled, if you don't decrease your stitches at those points, it won't form a nice chevron. So instead of having a nice flat bag here in front, you will end up with like a bubble because there's too many stitches there. So you have to work the bottom angle of your bags like chevrons. But this is not too bad. You do have to work into the like a beginning chain, which is the only thing bad about doing the handles is like the first part of the chain. And I will also say that as you're working into that chain, you're going to only work through the front and the back loops, and I'll show you when we get to that point. You're not going to work through one loop on one side and two loops on the other side, because if you do that, it won't give you that ladder effect on the back so that we can do the rickrack on the handles. So I'm going to take my yarn, and I'm actually going to join it on the side. So this is the front of my bag. I'm going to join it on the side in the corner. And I'm going to join it right in the middle of those stitches there where they've... So then I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to mark that. If you have to crochet, if you have to like pretty much stick your hook in wherever you can get it in, because at that point the handles are going to kind of, you know, I hate to say this, but you can fudge a lot of things in crochet. You can miss a couple stitches, you can add a couple stitches, and unless you're doing something like lacy, and even when you're doing something lacy, nobody's going to notice it but you. And according to the old wives' tale, you should leave mistakes in your work so your soul can escape, because you put so much into it. But that's just an old wives' tale. Okay, so let me get a little bit closer. I am going to start with stitching that center stitch right here in the center of the side of my bag. Not where the handles are, but actually in the side of the bag. So if you look with this bag here, I'm joining my yarn over here. That's where I'm going to join. And then I'm going to work, I am going to use pins because it's something I got in the habit of, and I found that it's a very good habit to use stitch markers. Good morning, everybody. So we're working on the granny square bag, so I'm going to use my stitch marker for my first stitch. And then I am going to go up along the edge, and I am going to start in the same stitch where the join is. So it's the very, very corner stitch. In this first stitch, I'm actually going to do a decrease. So I'm going to go in the corner stitch, and I'm going to go in the next stitch, the corner stitch, and the next stitch, and I'm going to make a decrease. Because again, if you don't do your decreases on either side of that point, your chevron's not going to be crisp. It's going to bubble out. So you have to have those decreases. But I do use the one solid stitch in the center, and then I decrease on either side of them. So now I'm going to work my way up these granny squares. 4, and I will show you. I'm going to work my way up these granny squares. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'd like to keep them a little bit even. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, it should be 17, 18, 19, should be 20 stitches. 20 or 21, I mean, whatever you end up coming out with. Now, that is the stitch. That is the stitch at the top where we want to start our handle. So I've worked up this side here, and I want my handles to loop around the top there. So I already know how many stitches I need to make this work. So we worked up this side here. I'm going to flip it back over, and I'm going to chain 75 stitches, and I'm going to join it back down here. And that's going to be the foundation chain for our first handle. And we are going to work all the way around. Both handles will get done at the same time, and then one side of both handles will get done at the same time. And then I work around to do the second half of each handle separately. So that was my last stitch on the top. And since that was my last stitch on the top, again, I'm going to mark them because I like to count and I like to make sure. So now I'm going to take them and chain 75. 6, 7, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Somebody had asked me, oh, I totally lost that. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Somebody had asked me if I blocked them, the granny squares, before I put them together. I do not block them. However, I do, like with this one back here, I will hang my bag after I put it together and before I line it. And I usually make a few bags before I pull out my sewing machine and line them. So once they hang, they kind of fall into shape, and the acrylic softens up a little bit, and you get a more accurate size of your bag at that point. 31, 32, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. Again, if you want to go back through any of these tutorials, you can go to my YouTubes at Nifty Knots Talk. It's NIFTYKNOTZ, one word, TOK Talk on YouTube. And I upload all these lives so that you can go through them again if you want. And you see today I wore red instead of black so that you could actually see the black yarn, because I think yesterday was a mistake. I wore a black shirt and was using black yarn, and I don't think it turned out all that well. But 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 60, 465, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75. Okay, so now I have my chain of 75 coming off of my bag, where I'm going to start my handle. So again, I started down here at the corner on the side of the bag. I worked my way up. This is going to be the front of the bag. I'm going to make sure that I don't twist my chain, and then I'm going to make sure I don't twist my chain, and I'm going to bring my yarn back down and join it at the top of this granny square, and then start working down the other side of the bag. So now that I just dropped it off my hook, let me just make sure I'm not twisting it, because I want to be able to so again, from this side to this side, I'm going to join it in the middle stitch in the top. Let me see. And I'm just going to work a single crochet. So now I have joined it like this. That's the side. That would be the front. I've joined it like that. I'm going to work down the other side. It should be 20, 21 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and I am going to mark that. See my black yarn here. I am going to mark my first stitch on the side there, just so I know where my chain ends and my side starts. My dog in the background, sorry. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is my side. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, it's going to be 20, And when I come down to the side again, I'm going to use this as my center stitch, but again, to make that chevron so that you don't get a bubble here, you're going to decrease the next 2 stitches before the center. So you're going to pull up and you're going to decrease and make your decrease stitch. You're going to pretty much shove your needle wherever you can manage to get it into this knot that you've made there. And that's going to be your center stitch for the side. And again, I'm going to mark my center stitch for my side, just so I keep track of where I am. So you can see where I am at this point. I've worked, there you go, I've worked up this side, I've worked my chain loop over, and I've worked down this side. So that's going to be the foundation for our first handle. You know, I do things a little bit odd sometimes, sorry. That's going to be the foundation for our first handle. But now that we're here, and we've started in the center of our side, just like we started in the center of our side on this side, we're going to take the next 2 stitches on this side and decrease them. I'm working up the next side. This is the side that I already did one handle on. So I'm working up the next side, and to create that chevron, I'm going to decrease there and then work up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, good morning, Josie, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then I'm going to end up at the top of that granny square, and I'm going to mark it. Today's my daughter's 18th birthday. She's number 5. She is the last. She's laughing at me. Okay, so we worked up one side. This is the easiest way to do it. We did our foundation chain. We worked down the next side. And then we started again to work up the second side. So now that we've started working up the second side, we're going to do the same 75 chains for the next one. And after we do the same 75 chains for the next one, we're going to make sure they're not twisted, and we're going to come down here and attach them to the next corner. So then you're going to get this up the side, up and around the handle to the next side, down the side, and then you're going to go up the next side in the back, up and around, and down the side in the back, and it's going to bring you to your starting point where you started your first side there. So again, I'm going to chain my 75, and again, oh, thank you very much, Janie. Thank you, guys. Yeah, 18. She's number 5. She's 18. I'm getting there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Good morning, by the way, Janie. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And good morning to like the rest of my regulars. I know I've got like user, is it 65 something there? I don't know what your name is, but will I line it with anything? Yes, I will. I think I did 25. Let me count and then I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because I try to do it in even numbers. That way I can sort of remember where I left off. But I do have a notebook here. I should be like jotting down where I left off my stitches. But let me show you my lining, and then I'll finish this handle. And again, if you want to rewatch any of these tutorials, I do believe in my bio I have my link tree, and I do believe I have a link to my YouTube. When I'm done doing my lives here, I go and I upload them to YouTube, so you can go back and like watch all this chaos. So, excuse me. I line my bags with denim, my tote bags. I line my tote bags with denim. I also use acrylic yarn to make my tote bags for a reason, because I find that the cotton will hold a stain a little bit more than the acrylic will. The cotton, because it's a natural fiber, will tend to wear down a little bit faster. And I also find that cotton yarn, no matter what I do with it, tends to fade just a little bit. And this is a bag that I want people to buy and use. You know, bring it home from the library with a stack of books, throw it in the corner, throw it in the washer, do whatever you want to do with it. The cotton, I bring it home and I throw it in the washer and I scorch it on some high heat to make sure it's nice and shrunk, so it won't shrunk once I line the bag. And you can see I line up through the handles as well, so that the entire bag is supported by... Hi. That's okay. Everybody always spells my name different. So the entire bag is supported by the denim, so that you're not going to stretch out or distort the shape of the bag. So my lining is denim, and I have two big pockets again. Do you ever had yarn bleed? Not acrylic. That's another thing with cotton. Sometimes when you buy cotton yarns, depending on what they are, they'll bleed. That's one of the reasons why I use the acrylic for my tote bags, because I want them to be extremely durable and extremely usable. I want them to last forever, and that's one of the reasons why I do that. But you can see the pockets that I have in here. I have two gigantic pockets. That's my lint roller. It holds my whole lint roller in there. And then on the other side of the bag, I have a big zipper pocket, and then, thank you very much, and then I have a loop with a hook for your keys, because who wants their keys to get lost in the bottom of the bag? That way you can just reach down and grab your loop and your keys come right out. Magnetic snap, but that's how I line them. And somebody had asked me if I would please do a tutorial on the lining, so I am not the greatest sewist, but I will start putting that together, if not with this weekend, next week, so that I can show you how I line them. And then after I top stitch my denim, because stitching denim, I mean, you buy something denim, it's always top stitch. So I top stitch my denim, and I hem it first, and then I top stitch my hem. And then after I've done that, you can see a lot of this might be repetitive, but you can see that line there. I actually have transparent thread that I use, and I put it on my on my sewing machine, because I don't want I want to make sure my hand stitching doesn't come out if I hand stitch the lining. So I actually machine stitch the lining with that transparent thread right onto the bag, and when you see it from the outside, you can see, you really can't, some fuzzies, I have a polyfill down there. You can see, you really can't see the transparent thread on the outside, it just kind of disappears into the stitching. So I know that it's going to be sturdy and secure, and I know that it's not coming apart. You can throw it in the washer. Like I said, the cotton's already pre-shrunk. The acrylic will tend to grow more than it will shrink, so I make my lining like 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, a little bit bigger, so that when it does, and this is the bag, it is tote bag size. It's a large tote bag size, like a beach bag. You can fit a stack of books in there, carry them around, and it's still going to stay sturdy. Let me hang that back up behind me and continue working on that. It's my other one. This one I've had hanging for a while. So you see that even though I don't block my squares, Once I've stitched them together and they hang there for a little bit, everything, thank you very much. Thank you. I should probably have that one up first. I need some sunny color today. It snowed again last night. I'm ready for the snow to be done. Where was I? It's beautiful and colorful. Thank you very much. So again, if you want to go through these tutorials and the things that I do today while I show you, you can click on my link in my link tree. Thank you. And follow me on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube and follow me. And all these, when I'm done doing this video, I will go straight back to my computer, and it usually takes about an hour, believe it or not, for me to upload one of these lives, because TikTok has to process it as the live. I have to download it, then I have to upload it to YouTube. So usually by the later on in the afternoon, by 2 or 3, will have this live uploaded to YouTube in my Nifty Knots Talk playlist. This is 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Let's finish around this handle. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Doing 75 stitches. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, almost there. 5, 10 more. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so now I have the 75 stitches for the second handle. So here's the 75 stitches for the first handle, and on the back side I have the 75 stitches for the second handle. And I'm going to take that without twisting my chain, and I'm going to attach it here. So let me just make sure I don't have my chain turned or twisted, because then it like screws it all up. Okay, so I'm going to then bring it down, and I'm going to attach it to the second side in the center. Oops. And I'm going to mark that stitch as the first stitch going down the side of my the other side of my bag. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about 20 stitches. 6. It's my dog. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so you can see my marker where I first started on this side. So you can see my marker where I first started on that side. That's my first stitch. And again, to get the chevron nice and neat, it's a chocolate lab. To get the side of my chevron nice and neat so that this doesn't bubble, because it's a corner. So you want it to stay a corner and you don't want it to bubble out. I'm going to decrease the last 2 stitches before I work my center stitch again. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to decrease those 2 stitches. Doggo has now realized it's Charlie. Charlie's the chocolate lab. He's Sir Charles in charge of the chocolate factory, if that doesn't date me. He thinks he's getting more peanut butter, because I usually throw him a peanut butter bone before I start doing all this. That way, usually it keeps him happy for an hour or so, but not today, I guess. He's just going to start harassing everybody, especially since my daughter's up. Okay, so now if you look, I've done, this is my starting point. I'm actually going to put a second pin here since I have a pin on the other side as well. So I just want to make sure this is my starting point, but this is my midpoint for my other side. So now I have started, I have gone up one side, I have gone all the way over, I have gone down one side to the corner, I have gone up the other side, I've gone all the way up and over with my 75 stitches, I've reattached it to the other side, and then I've come back down to my starting point. So, this whole round is going to be the first couple of rounds of your handles. When you finish the first couple rounds of your handles, we're then going to start in the middle, and we're going to go around the other side to do a second portion of the handle. That way you're not getting any more. Go lay down. That way you get a nice edge on this side going up, but you also get a nice edge on this side going up. And if you just work in the side loops and not that very back loop, you will find you'll have, like, if you pull the stitches apart a little bit, it'll have a gap and it'll have like a ladder, and I'll show you that. I can show you that. If we don't get this handle done today, we'll get it done tomorrow, and then I'll show you how to do the rick-rack on it. And that gap and that ladder, do I sell the pattern? Well, it's not really a pattern. I do have, for the granny squares and how to make my granny squares pop off, I do have those uploaded to YouTube already. If you go to my website, niftyknots.com, niftyknots.com is just a website. It's just about me. It's just the things that I do. It's gallery page, portfolio page, and I do have some patterns on there. I also have a shout outs page. So I can't actually like give you the pattern for the skull, because the skull was the inside of a pattern that I bought from somebody else. There is a link to it on my shout outs page. However, this pattern was only $1.50. So to pay $1.50 just to get the skull part was totally worth it. And then if you go to YouTube, making your motifs pop on your granny squares, I show you how I converted the straight granny square to a tilted granny square so that I could put the bag together. And the bag's a pretty standard bag. If you Google granny square totes, the diagram comes up. But yesterday I did lay out all my... I just bought the skull. It's so cute. Okay, you bought the skull pattern or you bought the skull bag? I'm just curious. Was that chair? The pattern, okay. So the only part of that pattern that I really used was the skull. And then if you go into my YouTube videos, you'll see where it's making your motifs pop on your granny square. And I show you how to do it so that you get that crisp line around the edge. And I showed you how I counted around the sides so that I could make it a tilted square. But yeah, I hate to give away, because I do sell some of my patterns, and I don't mind giving away my patterns, but I think if somebody's going to give away one of my patterns, like, they could at least ask me, you know, hey, do you mind if I pass this pattern along to a friend? Do you mind if I put this pattern on my website? Do you mind if I do this? No, chances are I'm going to say no. I don't care. Do what you want to do with it. But I don't want to just take that liberty and give out somebody else's pattern, because I just don't think that's fair. So the pattern for the skull, again, it's $1.50. And I just used the skull part of the pattern. I didn't use the granny square part. The granny square part is on my YouTube channel, Making Motifs Pop on Your Granny Squares. So now that I'm back to the beginning, I'm going to try to get out of the habit of sticking everything in my mouth when I take my stitch markers out. I'm going to, again, my first stitch is the center stitch in between. The first stitch is my center stitch in between the thank you, I appreciate that. I don't have many patterns up there, but I do have some patterns up there. But the patterns that I have on my website are free, and so far it's just a basic amigurumi doll, and it's how I made the basic amigurumi doll, and I took that with like blanket yarn and made it, and then I have pieces to how to make it into a cow, a giraffe, and a bunny so far up there. And then I'm working on basic patterns for puppets. I have them. I do have the pointy nose puppet that we did as a shark. I don't have one sitting here today. I do have that basic puppet pattern. It's just a sock puppet up on my website as well. That's free, but I don't have the pieces to make it into anything else just quite yet. And I do have a round nose puppet that's just the basic puppet that you can make unicorns, cows, whatever, because it's a rounder nose. But that is in a notebook that I think is in my shed, and being that it has done nothing but pour down rain or snow here, I have not gotten out there yet to find it. I will. Eventually I'll get them up there, because puppets are really easy to make, and they're the same as the amigurumi. Once you have a basic pattern, you can pretty much put pieces on it to make it anything you want. Okay, so now that we did the center stitch, now that we did that center stitch at the bottom of our corner, right, again, to make it in, make that chevron so that you don't get a bubble here, you're going to decrease the next two, over the next two stitches. So I'm just going to do a regular decrease, not an invisible decrease, because you're going to see both sides. If you weren't going to see both sides, I would do an invisible decrease, like with amigurumi. But since you're going to see both sides, I just do a regular decrease. And then I'm going to single crochet all the way up to my chain loop. It's only about 20, it's only like 20 stitches up at this point. The stitch count for the sides of your granny squares are always going to decrease, because you're decreasing here in the corners so that that chevron doesn't bubble. But the stitch count, and this is why I mark my beginning and my ends at the top, I have it marked that that was the last stitch that I did in the top of the granny square. So I'll take that one out, do the last stitch in my granny square, and I'm going to put that one back in, because now I know that even though I've decreased along the side, I have now 75 stitches to chain into the foundation chain. And again, when I'm doing this, I use a different color yarn just to show you. So when I'm going to single crochet around that foundation chain for the handle, you see how you have, like, this is your chain stitch, and you see how you have a stitch on one, like a part of the stitch on one side a part of the stitch on another side, and the third part of the stitch, if you turn it over, is actually the little bumps on the back. So when you go into your foundation chain to go around your handles, and this is just so we can do the decorative part a little bit easier. So when you go into your foundation chain to do your handles, you're just going to use the top stitch. You're only going to go through that first loop on the top stitch. And I'll do a couple just to show you. Again, I wish you guys could shout at me and tell me when I'm off camera. So you're just going to go into the top stitch. So that's one loop to go across. And then when you flip it over and when we start to do the other side of the bag, so you've taken this chain for your chain loops, right? And this is the front side of the chain, and it's our foundation chain that we've done. We're only going through the top loop of our foundation chain. So that when we turn it over, and I'll show you, so that when we turn it over, I'm not going to do all those stitches. You're just going to go through, once again, the very top loop. You're going to skip that back little, you're going to skip that bump that's in the back. You can see how you have your chain, and you have one side, and then you have the other side, and then you have like that little bump in the center that runs up and down. So you're just going to, when you turn to go the other way, we're only going one way at this point because we're going to go all the way around twice. But when you get to that point, you're just going to go through, again, just the top loop on the other side when we get to the other side. And I'll show you here in a second. So once again, you've only gone through, this top loop here. Here's my hook. You've gone through, there it is. You've gone through the top loop of your chain to go one way. You've gone through the bottom loop of your chain to go the other way. But you did not go all the way through both loops. So you still have that ridge, that bump, sort of like on the back of your chain stitch, how you get like that running line on the back of your chain stitch. You're not going to go through that at all, because that is actually going to give you like a ladder effect. If you pull it apart a little bit, you can see it gives you like a ladder effect if you do it that way. And that ladder, so it's sideways. Yes, this is going to be the strap. So you're going to work up one side of the strap just through the top loops. So when you do the first row of single crochets for the handles, you're just going to go through these top loops. You're only ever going to go through one loop. So then when we start working on the other side of the handle, because the handle is going to be two sections, we're going to work around one side, and after we've worked, yes, you could go through the ribbons if you wanted to, but what I actually do, I was going to show you guys this tomorrow, but I'll finish this little piece of 10 here. So again, I'm skipping the bump on the back, and I'm just going through the top loop of the chain. So I'm only going through, you can see it's pulled up there, I'm only going through the top loop of the chain. Whoops. One loop. I'm only going through one loop of that chain. So I'm only going through the top loops. So then let me just finish these last couple off, so that when I'm working because when you're going up and around this bag like this, you're doing it in one row. So your first couple of rows are just going to be on one side of the chain. So you just have to worry about this first row, just making sure you do it on that first side of the chain. And you're going to go up and around that twice. And then when you do the rest of it, we're actually going to flip the bag and we're going to start in the center of it, and then we're going to work this way, and it will give you, working this way will give you this side of the handle, and then working this way around will give you this inside part of the handle. So you have two, an outside and inside. Your foundation chain is in the middle. And then this is actually just a simple chain stitch that goes back and forth. So if I take my yarn and just to show you an example. So when I flip over to work on the other side, I'm not going to go through, you can see how it gives you like a hole there that you want to go through, but you don't want to go through that hole because then you're working through both of those loops. There you go. I have to hold it back a little bit further. So you have to go through both of those loops. But you don't want to go through both of those loops. You just want to pick up the very top. I had a needle here. I'm so bad. Here's my needle. Okay, so when you're going through here, you can see that you have the holes. I'm trying to keep it straight. You have the holes where you're tempted to, when you're going up the other side of the chain, go into that hole. And if you go into that hole, you're actually picking up both loops. You can see you're picking up both loops of that stitch. And you don't want to pick up both loops of that stitch. You just want to pick up the top loop of that stitch. So that top loop of that stitch, when you pick it up, is going to give you kind of that running stitch in the center. So let me do a couple stitches here to show you. So I'm going to pick up the top, just the top loop of the first stitch, and then again, I'm not going to go into the hole. I have to wait for my camera to focus. I'm not going to go into the hole. I'm going to go into just the top loop of the stitch. So I'm going to do the cross stitch. You can see it. So I'm just going to go into the top loop of my stitch. So if I go into just the top loops of my stitches, oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So if I just go into the top loops of my stitches, you can probably see it a little bit better from the back. You get like a crisscross, like there. You get like a crisscross, and you get like a little ladder effect that you can then go, thank you, Janie, that you can then, we will go into, and I will just show you the example real quick, and then I'm going to finish going around that bag. But again, you're just going into the top loops of the chain from the other side as well. Because now that we've done that, so say this is our handle, say this was the center with the beginning chain, and we did the one side, then we did the other side of the handle. You can see all the little X's. You can see them better from that side. You can see all the little X's, the kind of, there you go, right? So, and because we've got those X's, we're going to be able to go back and forth with a chain stitch underneath. And to do that, I know all kinds of colors sitting here. And to do that, I'm going to take my chain. And again, I'll go over all this again tomorrow because I'm going to finish the handles today. And then tomorrow I'll show you how to do the decorative stitching a little bit better. But you would then go into one side of the X. Actually, you're going to go into one side of the X, and you're going to pull that loop up from the back. You're going to pull the loop up from the back. So your working thread is actually going to be on the back of your piece. And then because you have an X there, you can go back and forth. So you can go in one side of the X and you can pull up a chain loop. And then you can go in the other side of the X, grab your working yarn from the back and do another slip stitch, and it pulls it back up. And then you can go to the other side of the X, and you'll see it much better once you've finished the handles. And you just pull that through like that, and you can see how it's starting, because then you would go to the other side of the X, or that stitch, and you would insert your hook, and you would grab your yarn from the back, pull it through the front, and just creates a slip stitch. And by being able to go back and forth like that, that makes that rickrack in the center of the from beginning to end. Probably next week, although I might do some lining of the bags next week. I might do a different project. If you guys have project ideas for me that you want to see, go right to my, you can just send me a direct message right through TikTok and I'll respond to you. If you just send me the like waving highs, chances are I'm not going to respond. But if you actually send me a message, I'll respond to it. So if you guys have ideas for other projects you want, feel free to let me know. But yeah, that's just a basic chain. And it's sort of how we did the shark's teeth when we made the shark's teeth three-dimensional. We started with a chain like this, and then we crocheted into the top of the, to make the teeth three-dimensional. But if this is a project you wanted to start from beginning to end with me, if you go to my YouTube channel, when I'm done with the lives here, I upload my lives to my YouTube channel, because I had some people ask me, they wanted to go back and rewatch them and follow along with the projects that I've done in the past. So I started to, and I did manage to get caught up. So it starts with the, thank you, it starts with the basic amigurumi doll and how you can just put pieces on it to make it in anything you want. And then we did a puppet, and then last weekend I sold a bag, so I thought, oh, maybe I'll do bags this week, because I was getting tired of doing puppets and dolls, because it's not usually my MO. I'm usually like the bag lady, and I have shawls, like lacy shawls that I like to do. But yeah, you can go back through and you can actually watch the previous lives where I showed you the granny square, and I showed you how to make it so that it's tilted, and then I showed you how to stitch them together. So all those are how to start a chevron stitch. You know what, I'm going to write that down. Maybe we'll do chevron next week. The fish purse is beautiful. Thank you very much. That was actually my pattern. I saw it maybe about 15 years ago, at least. It was a knitted bag from, I don't know, a different country. And I tried so hard to find a pattern for that, and especially to adapt it to like crocheting. And I was so disappointed. So I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked. And finally, the more I learned, the more I thought to myself, you know what? I can do this. I can put this together. And that is one of the patterns that I sell. And one of the reasons why I sell it was because it took me almost 2 months full time to sit there and try to figure out how to get that crocheted purse look like the one, how to start a ripple. To be honest with you, I'd have to look it up. I know that sounds terrible. So maybe I'll do that next week. Maybe I'll do starting a ripple stitch next week, and then do some lining bags next week. But yeah, if you guys ever have any idea for content that you want to see or you want me to do, I might not do it that particular video, But let me see. That's Gwen. (3124). Okay, I'm just writing down your username because then when I'm going to do the chevrons, I can actually let you know when I'm going live. I usually go live every weekday morning, somewhere around 9:45-ish. I think I have a couple doctor's appointments next week that I won't be there, but I will let you know in the one before. But yeah, usually Monday through Friday, because this is what I'm going to sit and do anyway. I turn on my camera and I sit and do live and I kind of go through things. So that's when I go live. But Gwen, you requested the chevrons, so I have that written down here. So the day that I'm going to do the chevrons, I will I'll send you a message and let you know that I'm going to go live and I'm going to show you how to do the chevrons. Will that work? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've come up the first side of the bag again, and you can see my chain stitches there the best you can because it's black. I'm sorry. So now since I'm working on this side, I'm going to work on this side of the chain, and I'm just going to go through that top loop. So it should be 75 stitches or so. I mean, if you're missing a stitch or two, nobody's ever going to notice. So I'm just going to go up and I'll show you here. Working in the foundation chain is not exactly my favorite thing to do, but I am just crocheting into the very, there you go. I'm just crocheting into the very top loops of the chain. I know. I don't know what made me, because that was the bag I was going to do, I guess. I don't know. I am working on some others, but if I hold it close enough and give it a minute, it kind of, but so you can see I'm just going in to the very top loops to do my single crochet. So if I pull this down, if I pull my single crochet apart, you can kind of see that I still have the 2 loops on the bottom. So just going all the way around that chain, just in the very top loops, not through both of them. Just like I showed you with the brown here that's not all tangled around my, this is how I usually work. Everything's just kind of everywhere. So I am going to go up this, oops, I split that yarn there. So I'm going to go up this with my 75 stitches. And I don't have to worry about counting them because as long as I only go through that 1 loop. So as long as when I'm doing it, I know you're looking at it from the back, but you can see, as long as I'm going only through the top loop, I've only got 1 loop on that hook to do my single crochet. So I'm only going through the top loop to do that single crochet. And again, I'll go to the next one, and I'm only going through the top loop. It seems like you can see it better from the back. And I'm just pulling up that 1 loop to do my single crochet. So that's how I'm doing that. And I'm going to go around there. And once I go around there, I'm going to go around this whole thing. So if you start where you started, you can actually do the first round of both handles at the same time. And then for the second round, for the second half, second side, I don't know how to, I'm not quite sure how you explain it. One side of the handle, the second side of the handle. So there's a chain stitch in here, and you have one side of the handle that you're working one part around, and then you have another side of the handle that you're working the other part around. Again, if you want to go back and watch these, you can Google granny square tote bags, and it actually gives you the diagram that shows you how to put your 13 squares together. Yesterday I showed you how I pin all my squares together, because when I pin all my squares together first, to pin them as a bag and not just as a flat piece that I'm then going to put together, once I've pinned them, to join them, I can start at the top in the middle, and I can go down the side, and because I've pinned it together as a bag, I can come up the next side to the center, and I don't even have to cut my yarn. I can just start going back down the other side, and then back up this side to where I started, and then knot it off. And then I can take, after I've done that, I've actually will have this whole part done. I can start on the side, and I can do the same thing. I can go all the way down, and without having to cut my yarn, I can just keep going up the other side of the bag all the way up, and then cut it. So I really only have to do a couple rows to join my bag together when I do it that way, when I pin it all together as a bag piece instead. And hook, and we'll work on this, because then I'll show you how I go up and down, because again we've gone up and down. We're working on this handle now. We'll go down to the other side, we'll go over this side, up this side, we'll go over this handle and back down to the side, and then once we do that, I'll do that a second time. And yeah, I do have a couple of other ones that I have almost ready to go. I was working on the bunnies. So this might be a better square to kind of show you some things on. So, but I don't have enough of them done to put together yet. I apologize. Next time I'll do some better planning. It's been, you guys have been overwhelmingly supportive, which is why I have kept doing this. So I've learned that I have to plan things a little bit better than just sit down and do the project that I'm working on, which is one of the reasons why I said that I am open to any suggestions for things that you want to do. YouTube. Oh, thank you. It's, you know what? It's not a problem, because I feel bad. You can't really, it's hard to learn something and see something and grasp something the first time you do it. It really, truly is. But when it comes to crochet, like, knitting's still a little bit foreign to me. I can't, like, freehand stuff to knit like I can like I can freehand stuff to crochet, because I've been doing this since I've been 5 or 6. I don't know. Sewing's the same way. I can't really freehand stuff as much, because this is what I picked up and I liked to do. So I have learned how to manipulate my stitches. But when you think about it, when you're crocheting, as you can see, the only thing I'm doing that needs to be consistent is holding my yarn and holding my hook. No, I was not a teacher before this. I was actually a nurse. And no, if you look, again, in some of my, in a couple of the YouTube videos I have, the first one, making your motifs pop on your granny squares, this is the motif that I did was the bunny, and you can see I just crocheted that granny square right around that bunny. So you have a lot of patience. It's some good therapy. Here's my bunny. I'm going to make a bag out of him too. I think might like glue some pink felt in his little ears up there. I have one that I don't know. All my projects started in my bin here. Here's the one that I have that I put like a little safety eye on. So I might like glue some pink felt in here and glue his ears to there to make him pop a little bit more. But no, I actually show you how, if you work with a round motif, how you can actually take that and just start your granny square right from it. And I show you how to manipulate the stitches. Just manipulate might be a wrong word. You have the back loops and the front loops. So if you learn how to, thank you very much. So if you learn how to use your back loops and front loops in different ways, maneuver. There you go. If you learn how to maneuver around your back loops and your front loops, you learn that all I really did to make this pop, and this is a 24 circle motif. So 24 divided by 6 is 4. So I know that I'm going to stitch, skip one, stitch. Here you go. I'm going to corner, skip one, stitch, skip one, granny stitch, skip one, corner. So I know that I'm going to have 2 granny stitches in between each corner with one in between if I do a motif that has 24 stitches around. And to be able to, yes, on YouTube I have 2 videos that's making motifs pop off your granny squares. So what I did was, the motif, you're actually looking at the wrong side of the motif. I don't have my bunnies done. So this is the right side of the motif. So you can see the stitches around the right side of the motif. Right? So you can see that this is the wrong side of the motif. You can see how the stitching looks a little bit different. Nobody ever knows that. All they see is that cute little bunny in the center there. Unless somebody actually took it and, you know, was like with a magnifying glass trying to inspect it, you would never know that this is actually the wrong side of the motif. This is the right side of the motif. You can see it's like a mirror image. And to get that granny square started, I will actually flip this over so that I'm holding it this way and I'm working into, I have to give my camera takes a minute to adjust. So I hold it this way and I start my stitches in the back loops here. So the wrong side of my motif, and yeah, I do have a video that goes over this over and over and over and over. So the wrong side of the motif becomes, the right side of the motif becomes the wrong side of the motif, and I do an entire round of my contrasting color through the stitch here in the back. So when I do my entire round of my contrasting stitch through those loops there, those bottom loops there, when you flip it over, and I don't do any increases because makes it look like fur, yeah. Because when you're working through this bottom loop here around a circle, you're not really adding much height to it, so you don't have to increase anything. So you would just flip it backwards, and then you would start in the, here, this is a better, let me show you a better stitch so the tail's not in the way. So you would flip it backwards, and you would then make this the front and start with your contrasting color in that other loop there, in that back loop there. So you're now going to work your stitch here, 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 and you're just going to do 24 stitches all the way around. And when you do it that way and you put that first round of color, because you can see around here, I have an entire round of just single crochet in those back loops. And when you turn it, that front loop that you skipped because you flipped this backwards, and again, the other videos that I did explain it a little bit better because this was the only thing I did on those videos. When you work through those back loops and change your, you can see where I've crocheted into the back loops and I've left the bottom loops and I've left the top loops, and because I've left the top loops open, those top loops, when you pull your square out, create that nice crisp edge there around so that it doesn't really look like you have your stitches going through your motif. So I don't know if you can tell that, but that is, I worked these stitches in like the bottom loop. So if I held it this way, it would be in that back loop. The stitches that I worked would be in this round right here, in the bottom round of the stitches, so that when I flip it over, the top round of stitches gives me that crisp look on the motif. And I actually played around with the frog, which I like the frog. The frog looks a little bit wonky. I just kind of like did that kind of on the fly here. But I am going to work on the frog because I like frogs, but it's the same principle. I went around once in that bottom loop so that the top loop stayed unstitched, and this is the back side, and nobody would ever know it was the back side. But that top loop, because you didn't work through it, creates a crisp edge. And if you do your entire first round around that motif, just a solid single crochet before you start your granny, before you divide it up for your granny stitches, it really will make it pop out so it doesn't look like you've attached your clusters into the pieces of your motif. And to be honest with you, even though you flipped it to the back side of your work, like this is the back side of the frog, is the right side of the granny square. So this would be what your right stitches would look like on the right side. And the wrong stitches, to be honest with you, don't look much different than if you were to film each granny a different animal. I did a blanket for my grandson like that. But they don't look like this because that was years ago before I decided that this was the technique I was going to do. But I did him for my grandson. I did a big blanket where each granny was a different. It was a heart or an animal, or I think I have stars and a moon and pigs, and I gave it to him when he was a baby. And the funny part about it is I didn't put any eyes on it because I didn't want him to chew on the eyes because it's a blanket. So I didn't stitch any buttons or put any safety eyes or do anything like that to that blanket. And to this day, he will be 9 this year. To this day, that blanket is full of animals that don't have eyes. Because I had told my son, when he gets old enough that he's not chewing on things anymore, give it back and I'll put some eyes on him. Whether I embroidered them on or whether I stitched them on or whatever I did with it. Yes, I do one single row with no increases in that bottom loop. And when you turn your motif backwards, so This is the front side of your motif that you finished. You're going to do one row of, so you're going to, this is, where's my needle? Here you go. This is the loop you're going to work into, this bottom loop here. If you can tell that, you're going to work into this bottom round of loops. But what you're going to do is you're going to flip your motif over. So this is going to be your front loop, and this is going to be your back loop. So you're going to flip it over this way, and you're just going to do a solid round of single crochet. Hold on. You're just going to do a solid round of single crochet. I'll show you. So this is the front side of your motif. You're going to flip it so that you're working from this side. And I start right at the tail because that's where I want my corner to be. So front side of the motif, back side of the motif is going to become your front side of the motif. And you're going to insert your stitch through that back loop. Let me just do one or two and then you'll see what I mean. So again, I'm looking at the back side, crocheting right. So I'm going to go into the back loop and do my single crochet. So I'm actually working in this loop as the back loop. So again, so that's how I'm trying to, it's kind of hard to get it, to show you. So again, this is going to be your front loop because you're looking at it from this side. This is going to be your back loop because this is where you're looking at it from this side. And you're going to go into that back loop, and that's where you're going to put your single crochet. I think I skipped one there, but I'll show you again. So you're looking at it from this way. You're looking at it from this way. The top loop is your front loop. The back loop is the bottom loop is your back loop. So you're going to go into that next back loop that's on the bottom, and you're going to crochet. So that when you look at it from the front, you've crocheted behind the top loop of stitches into the, it's so hard to demonstrate this, into this bottom loop of stitches so that that pops out and looks crisp. Does that make sense? Got it. You said you got it? Yeah, that's how I did that to make those motifs pop. Now the skulls, I will tell you, for whoever said they downloaded the skull pattern, I use, I am so twisted here. I used just the skull part of the pattern in that granny square. And when I do that first round like that, behind there, you can kind of see where I picked up the stitches behind there. When I first do that first round around there, it gives me 30 stitches. So I really kind of have to take it, and again, these are in the last couple videos I did if you go to YouTube. So I kind of take my stitch markers and I mark where I want my corners to be. So these aren't perfectly even, that first round of black. Some of these skip one stitch, some of these skip two stitches, and actually what I did to make it work a little bit better was I did the first half of the corner in one stitch and the second half of the corner in the stitch right next to it. So if you have more than 24 stitches, it kind of works out that you have to manipulate the stitches. But if you put your stitch markers exactly where you want your corners to be to tilt it, you can see how you How's the head of the bunny attached to the granny? That's okay. Don't be sorry. Um, the head of the bunny on this one, which I probably need a bigger eye if I'm going to do it this way, I took it and I put a safety eye on it because I'm going to make a tote bag out of it, so you're not going to see the back of it. So I put that eye through all of the fabric to hold this part of it on, and I can just tack it down with a little bit of glue. Always use, let's see if you see it. It says permanent fabric adhesive. I've done swatches. It's not coming off. And then for the ears, to get the ears to stay up there, when I did my last round, I just hooked that stitch into one of the loops from the top of the ears to secure them up to the top. So you can see where I just kind of hooked that stitch at the top through just a loop on the ears to keep the ears to stay at the top. So that's how I joined the head of the bunny, because this is all worked in one round, and then these stitches are worked with loops that are joined like picots, just like the little tail bob here is worked like a picot, just different number of stitches. Like this was 4 stitches and this was 13 up and around and 13 up and around. But that's how I joined I used my eye, a little bit of, you can either stitch down or use some permanent fabric glue. That's why I said I might cut out some little pink felt pieces to put behind those ears, because that's how they're attached. When I do the last round, because that just happened to be where the top of the ears came, I just did that stitch through a loop when I did that stitch to secure it to where I wanted it to be secured to. So that's how oh, you're welcome. So that's how I secured the bunny's head to him. And I figured it wouldn't look too bad since the bunny was at the top, because if I'm making more bunnies and they're like triangular like this, the bunnies are still going to be evenly spaced. The bunnies are still going to be evenly spaced. So it's not going to look like you just have like this conglomeration of ears at the top. You're always at the top of this square going to have the bottom white part. So it will tend to work out. Thank you very much. So it'll tend to work out the way you want it to. I find it's all about patterns. You can pretty much make any color work as long as you put it in some sort of pattern. I've used all kinds of yarn that my husband has come in and said, that doesn't match. And I said, oh, wait till it's done. And then when it's done, because you've incorporated those two like really odd colors into some sort of pattern, you'll find that you can make it work as long as you incorporate that into a pattern. It doesn't matter how mismatched that yarn is. If you incorporate it into some sort of fabric or in some sort of pattern, it's going to work. It's going to work because it's going to look like it's supposed to be there, because the pattern makes your eye drawn to the pattern that's even, that makes it look right, if that makes sense. My dad is an artist. My dad does watercolors. So a lot of these lectures about colors and color palettes and how to do different things came from him at a very, very young age. And I love it. I grew up, this is what I did. All my crazy old aunts crocheted. I shouldn't call them crazy old aunts, but I'm one of those at this point in my life. I am that crazy old aunt. And I'm proud of it. The only thing bad about being a crazy old aunt is that, like, the old makes things fly out of your brain. So you forget what you're saying. Not offended if you... Oh, thank you so much. not offended if I like go off on some tangent and somebody comments, "Hey, you were showing me this. Can you like keep doing that?" Not offended at all, because I totally get it. So I can tell you right now, I'm probably just going to get the first row of this bag done. Because what time is it? I've already been chattering away for over an hour. Almost an hour and a half, believe it or not. It's true. Yeah, things just go, bye, see ya. What were you talking about? I went to my mother's. My mother lives in the city. I live in the middle of nowhere. I moved to where we used to vacation. Yep. That was pretty much it for me. That was the cutoff. And my sister just turned 50 this year, and when I went down to the city, my mother had Thanksgiving dinner. I could see my sister sitting there, and she was talking to somebody. And of course, like, I'm chattering away, and my mother moved into a smaller apartment, so like now everybody can see everybody. So I'm chattering away, everybody's chattering with everybody, and I look over at my sister, and like mid-sentence, she just stops. And she just looks there, and she just starts looking around. And I happened to notice her, and I looked at her, and I went, "Ha! It's just starting. Just wait." I said, "You'll forget everything." And you do. You hit 50 and like it just all goes away. So like this is my piece. This is what I like to do. So this keeps me from thinking about my age, my forgetfulness, my craziness, all those things that tend to happen to you when you hit that age. But I'm going to wrap this up here. I will tell you right now, this is what I'm going to do with this bag. And then I will come back tomorrow and I will finish the second part of the handles. So you can see, I started here. I worked into just the top loop all the way around the first handle. And then I'm going to continue single crocheting to the center here. And don't forget, when you come down here at the bottom of the chevron, hold on, I'll get back to that. When you get down to the bottom of the chevron, decrease over 2 stitches before you do the center stitch. Decrease over the next 2 stitches before you work your way back up, just so that you don't get that little bubble there from the stitches. And then work your way back up the other side, back around the chain, and back down to the side. You see I put 2 pins here because this was my starting side, and then you're back to where you started again. Now I'm going to go around this once, and then I'm going to go around this twice. So I'm only going to have 2 rows of single crochet on this side. So that's what I'm going to finish doing tonight. I'm going to do the 2 rows of single crochet on this side, and then tomorrow I will show you how we can flip the bag, because now we have the sides that are finished and we have the handles that are finished, but we still have this part in here that's not finished. You can see that. We still have this part in here that's not. So you've worked up the sides, you've worked up the top, you've worked up the bottom, and you're so far just working on that one side of that chain, on this side of the chain, to do this side. So you'll get a nice border here where you see the border isn't quite as thick here. So today I'm going to finish doing my border, my second row of single crochet all the way around. And then tomorrow I'm going to show you how I go up and through the handle loop to do the border in the second half of the second inside half of the handle, and how to do the decorative rickrack on it. Oh, TikTok's telling me you've gone live for 90 minutes. Don't forget to take a break. Yeah, well, I sit here and do this all day. Then I wouldn't be able to move. I think she's probably going out to dinner with her boyfriend today. I think that's probably going to be the plan. But So if you go to my website, I do have a couple of free patterns. They are basic amigurumi dolls with the pieces that you could put on them to make that basic doll into a couple of different things. Um, if you, and these are all links that you can click on my link tree. My website is a basic plain website. It's not a blog site. It's not full of clickbait. It's not full of ads. As a matter of fact, there's none on there. And just my website, not my shop site. If you want to go to my shop site and shop, you're more than welcome to. The website, and then the YouTube channel, because now that I'm done, I chattered way more than this. I figured since I chatter so much while I do this, I just upload them into like a podcast playlist. So if you want to go through, it's Nifty Knots, one word with a Z, NIFTYKNOTZ, talk, TOK is the second word. And but you should, if you just look for the Nifty Knots, or if you just go to my bio and you click the link in my link tree, if you click the link tree, it's somewhere in there. I do believe I have my YouTube channel link in there as well. You can go right to that. And I will see you tomorrow, Janie. And yeah, you can pull up all the previous live videos. This one should be available later on today, even though I feel like it wasn't quite that informative, but we'll finish up this bag for the sandals tomorrow. And then I have written down here, Gwen, how to start chevrons. We can do that too. If I don't do that tomorrow, I will definitely do that Monday. I usually take Saturdays and Sundays off so I can get some stuff reposted to my website or finish up some little things I have to do, maybe actually sweep my floors. Who wants to do that? But I appreciate everybody that joined me. I appreciate everybody that liked the live. And I hope to see you over on YouTube. That would be fantastic. And I will see you guys all tomorrow morning, usually about the same time, Monday through Friday, somewhere around 9:45 I usually come on. I will figure out what days I have doctor's appointments that I won't be able to make it, and I can let you know that tomorrow, because I think they're next week sometime. So I won't be able to hear, I know I won't be here next Wednesday, and I think there's one other day, I think I have one other doctor's appointment that I won't be here, but tomorrow I'll let you know what days I won't be here the following week. But usually it's Monday through Friday around 9:45. Thank you so much, everybody that joined me. Thank you so much for all the likes. Thank you so much for all the support. You enjoy the rest of your day as well. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you.